What's up, everybody? It's the Digital World Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about a few of the supply chain disruptions and what that means for the current narrative at hand. Now, we see that recently the world's largest meatpacker, JBS, was hit by a ransomware attack. Okay, now, first, it was the Colonial Pipeline. Now it was this meatpacking industry, and it's one of the largest ones there are. Now, what do you think that's going to do to the price of meat? We saw what it did to the price of gasoline when this cyber attack happened. In the East Coast, the Colonial Pipeline supplied 45% of the fuel to the East Coast, and there was gas stations that were without gas. And obviously they're blaming it on the cyber attacks, but obviously what the Fed is doing with all this, uh, their monetary and fiscal policy, it's ruining the economy. There's no other way to put it. It's as simple as that. But there's always going to be a scapegoat. But regardless of the fact, you can't dispute the increase of prices. And inflation is a real thing. It's a real thing. And soon we're going to see meat soaring through the roof, or the prices of meat, sorry. And this is just one of the next steps in what's happening in the economy. Now, this is an important thread because here we have Henry Kissinger said you control the oil and you control nations. If you control food, you control the people. Now, that's a very interesting quote, and that brings us back to Klaus Schwab. What did he say about a major cyber attack? I know you've heard this probably a million times, but it's important to hammer down these points so you understand the bigger picture, because you hear him talk about this, but once you start putting things into perspective, it starts clicking. Now, first the pipeline, we saw what that caused, a great panic. Gas stations were without gasoline. The the Colonial Pipeline was halted for a bit because it could not supply, gasoline to uh, most of the East Coast. And now we have the world's largest supplier had a ransomware attack, and it produces 1/5 of U.S. beef. So that's interesting. Now let's hear Klaus Schwab.
We all know, but still pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack. To use the COVID-19 crisis as a timely opportunity to reflect on the lessons the cybersecurity community can draw and improve our preparedness for a potential cyber pandemic.
So, and he's not talking about, one little event here, one little event there. I think a cyber pandemic refers to a global cyber attack that would shut down all systems. And if you see what these little attacks have done to, a U.S. fuel pipeline, or, a meat supplier, what that does, the consequences are massive. Now imagine on a global scale. I can't imagine. But this is just more reason for nations to go into the digital age. Here he says US President Joe Biden is directing his admin to expand crypto analysis as part of its response to a recent spate of ransomware attacks. So the system, it's showing the cracks in the system. And first there's a problem and they present the solution. Now, I've always been adamant about cryptocurrency. And if you invest in utility coins, then you're set because it's going to help solve the issues that are at hand. Now, I'm always been also an advocate of having short-term and long-term portfolios where you take your profits in the short term, um, because nothing is guaranteed in this space. You can only do the best that you can and doing thorough research in what you own. But for myself, reward my time by taking short-term profits, and that's important for me, and everyone's situation is different. Now, cryptocurrency wallets could replace banks. We know this. We're seeing the narrative. We're seeing the change happen in real time, and it's important. Sometimes we dismiss this because we don't we don't see the forest for the trees. um and so it's important to keep open eyes and see that the change is happening. And if you're here, you realize that, and you're making a change for yourself to help improve your way of living. And that's what this investment will do for you. Now, make no bones about it, people, that these utility coins, like for example XRP, its niche is in cross-border payments. We know that there's a lot of friction in that system, and they're completely transforming the way we send money, and it's going to be revolutionary. Now, here's Alan Cohen. He was a senior policy advisor to Jake Clayton, actually. Okay, and he was the former global head of compliance at Goldman Sachs. Now he describes the current crypto regulation in the U.S. Now, he says here a second major area of regulatory focus is the application of blockchain technology to fiat currency and global payment system, which appears to be heading toward a new digital era on the global stage. The Financial Stability Board, comprised of G20 finance ministers, central banks, Bank of International Settlements, and other international organizations and global standard-setting bodies, is hard at work on an overhaul of the global payment system, and they will embrace crypto assets in the form of fiat digital currency. The system has been the backbone of the global. The new system will replace or supplement the existing SWIFT system that has been the backbone of the global bank-to-bank payment system for decades. Okay, these digital currencies are likely to be in the form of sovereign fiat currencies like the dollar, the euro, the yuan. And remember that video of Chris Larson where he said that he sees crypto assets as being a complement to the current um, fiats of the world or sovereign currencies of the world. And if anything, it'll make them stronger, but it'll also create a level playing field for all these other currencies. And this brings to mind exactly what he said. And we see here he keeps on going. He says the implication of fiat digital currencies for existing cryptos is unclear, but let's not forget the old adage, don't bet against the Fed. You might modify that to say don't bet against the central banks of the world to relinquish control over their money supply and currency. And this is what a lot of influencers on this space have been saying, that um, or also Brad Garlinghouse actually was saying that these central banks and the powers that be will bring out the tanks and the guns before they give up their monetary sovereignty. And so that's not going to happen. And if you think that it's down with the banks, down with all this, no, you're mistaken. They've always been involved. They will always be involved, and it's no different this time around. That's why you have to come to the realization that this will be used for the benefit of these central banks and these governments. And you're not going to be down with the banks, down with anything. That's why the sooner you come to a realization of that, the sooner you realize, okay, which ones are compliant with regulations. And I think that after this case with the SEC is finished, XRP might not have the clarity that it needs from the SEC, but it will be a step in the right direction. I think it'll have most of what it needs because the SEC won't be able to come after it again. And we know that it's a virtual currency because FinCEN declared it that in 2015. And so I think all the clarity it needs will be a full go after this case because now I think it'll have what it needs. Uh, the transparency and the green light to keep on going. And right now, there's an elephant in the room that's the escrow. And that's the interesting part. There's so many, you can speculate on that for a long time, for hours. But I think that's the elephant in the room. And I wonder if the SEC knows how big that escrow is going to be. And so I'm wondering if they want a small piece of the pie. And we'll see when the settlement comes what that will entail. I hope this episode has brought you some value. Like and subscribe, comment below. What are your thoughts? As always, I like hearing from you. This is the Digital World Podcast, and I'll see you in the next episode.